this game easily, but they still have work to do, I think, right now to press the committee because, like I said, it seems like the committee has a negative view towards the Big 12 as opposed to the other Power 5 conferences. If that manifests again, they could have problems for them and Oklahoma, who's got a tough one against Texas today, being able to manifest and justify them getting into the playoff, because that's one thing that's been obvious the last few years is there's been a kind of disdain toward the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 19, Texas and Oklahoma. Oklahoma is number 7, but I tell you what, they should be ranked a lot lower, and Texas should be ranked a lot higher, so we'll see how that game plays out. Obviously, number 1, Alabama against Arkansas. I'm not seeing much of an issue here for Alabama. Alabama's still going to be Alabama, and Alabama's still going to do what Alabama does. And until Alabama proves us wrong, we're just going to assume that they're going to go on through and win some ball games, and today is no different.
Alabama's got this one in the bag. I think, obviously, you take a look at what the opponents are right now. And Arkansas, I got to say, Arkansas has been a little bit of a disappointment so far this season. I thought we'd see more from them. They'd be at the level, say, where Kentucky versus Kentucky is, and they haven't gotten there yet. And I don't think they'll get there this week either. And it's hard to see Arkansas coming into this year being a 1-5 club. Looks like that's where they're headed after this week.
We've got another Big Ten matchup. Number 20, Michigan State against Northwestern. What are your thoughts?
Northwestern's probably the best 1-3 team that's out there right now. They've been close to winning games multiple times this year. Should be more than just a one-win team. I think they'll give MSU a run, but I believe that the Spartans will find a way to get the victory at Spartan Stadium today.
We got Boston College against number 23, North Carolina State. We saw Boston College and what they could do against Notre Dame. Do they have what it takes to beat North Carolina State?
I would say no at this point based on what we had last week, but overall it's still a lot of things in the question mark pool for both schools at this point. Gotta say I'm surprised NC State's in the rankings, even though they are 4-0. They've played a very limited schedule at this point. But I believe that, again, the home team advantage will help them here, and I believe the Wolfpack will get by the Eagles.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a rivalry in the Sunshine State today. Florida State against Miami, Florida. Florida State, big disappointment this year. I think a lot of people are missing their Jimbo Fisher, if you will. But State, Miami, Florida.
Miami should easily get this game. Florida State, like you said, has been too much hit or miss right now, and the opponents that they've beaten, not exactly the strongest out there. And again, talk about raucous crowd. Remember last time Notre Dame went to Coral Gables, they lost 41-8 to Miami. I'm not saying that Florida State's going to lose by that much, but I don't believe they're going to come close to beating the Hurricanes today.
I don't think Oklahoma State's going to have much of a problem with Iowa State today. I don't know that this is really a game that needs a lot of talking about, but it is a number 25 team. Oklahoma State is.
Oklahoma State, I think right now, is on the verge of elimination from the talk right now. They need to find a way to keep winning ball games. The loss they suffered was bad enough. Should have no problems beating the Cyclones, but they can't afford. They got to win this game convincingly if they want to get themselves back up in a position where they can challenge for one of those 4 playoff spots.
Number 5, Tigers, LSU Tigers, and the number 22, Florida Gators. This should be a good matchup as well, but I think LSU certainly will come out on top in this matchup.
I think Florida can give them a run. I think, obviously, the wake-up call came with the poor performance against Kentucky. You never know at this point. Obviously, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is a tough place to play, but it just depends on what attitude Florida is in. If they're in the right set of mind, I think they could give Ed Orgeron's team some trouble. But like you said, I think LSU finds a way to sneak past this one, but it will be a test for them against the Gators.
Talking with Matthew-Embury, also our official IndyCar contributor, but a college football contributor over on Breaking Rank, and glad he's able to join us this morning to help us break down some of these games that are happening today. Number 4, Clemson against Wake Forest. This is a non-talker. Clemson should have a pretty solid win here.
Well, that's what we thought last week against Syracuse, and they had their problems beating the Orange.
Good point. Good point.
The thing is, the Wake Forest, should be a much better Wake Forest team than what we've seen. I did not expect them to get blown away by Notre Dame like they did, giving up 56 points. Just their defense just doesn't have it right now at this point to hold off Trevor Lawrence and company with Clemson. Be interesting to see how Trevor Lawrence bounces back from his injury he suffered last week. If that's the case, could be a closer game, but I still think Clemson should have no reason to lose it.
Well, we got Arizona State against number 21, Colorado. What are your thoughts there?
Potential danger game for Colorado. Obviously, Herm Edwards has gotten a decent record, 3-2, not the greatest, but not bad for Arizona State. But I believe Colorado finds a way to get the victory for Ralphie and company.
Big game here in Indiana as far as Indiana fans go. As far as maybe not in the overall standings of the top 25, although it would be a great win for Indiana against the Ohio State Buckeyes. But the Ohio State Buckeyes visit Bloomington, Indiana. Obviously a game I'm going to be watching for both personal reasons and just a lot of reasons, but I'm going to be watching this game. Ohio State, though, has not necessarily had an easy way against Indiana in the past, and Indiana is actually a moderately good football team since we're talking about Indiana football. They are a bowl potential type team. They do have to win these Big Ten matchups. I don't know that they'll win against Ohio State at home, but it would be huge. But that said, Indiana seems to always find a way to play Ohio State a very good ball game.
Thing is, they got to get out to a much better start than they did against Michigan State, the game they lost. They fell 14, I believe 14-17, nothing behind early against the Spartans, and they never recovered from that. If they do that against Ohio State, they'll have an equally ineffective run today. But Ohio State, a team that's looked okay in certain games, not okay in other ones. They're still undefeated, but they've certainly left some change on the table, at least based on what I've seen in the first few weeks. But I don't believe Indiana is going to be the one that knocks them off at this point.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a tough task, but, man, wouldn't it be nice to see. SMU against number 12, UCF. Not a lot to talk about in this game. Certainly, UCF is a solid number 12 in their rankings there, but what are your thoughts?
You got to feel bad for UCF because, I mean, they have a solid team. There's no question about it. The problem is they just don't play the type of competition that's going to get them in the committee's eyes. Even if they go 12-0, I still don't think that's going to be enough to merit them a top 4 spot in the college football playoff. And, yeah, it's a talented team, but they're just not in the right conference, and they don't have the level of opponents necessary to be in consideration, even though they are in the top 12 of the polls this week. It potentially could be in the top 10 if a couple other teams start to fall by the wayside. But, again, it's not enough for them, I think, to be able to get into the realistic conversation of getting into the college football playoff, even if they do run the table like they did a year ago.
So tonight, a game that the whole nation is going to be watching and probably be paying close attention to. That's number 13, Kentucky Wildcats against the Texas A&M Aggies. Kentucky started off the season well, and I tell you what, they've not looked back since that Florida game. What are your thoughts on this matchup between the Wildcats and the Aggies?
I think if Texas A&M's D could force and could put the clamp down on Benny Snell Jr., force Terry Wilson to beat them, I think they're going to have a good chance. Kentucky's, this is their first true road test outside the Florida game. A lot of people think that Texas A&M is going to get the victory here. I believe they will, but it's going to be a very tight for a Texas A&M team that has had chances to pull off big wins, but has come up empty-handed on 2 occasions. I don't know if that's going to be 3 for 3 or not, but certainly the pressure is going to be on Jimbo Fisher and Mike Elko to find a way to keep this Kentucky deep offense in check, because we know Kentucky's defense is extremely stout. At least they have been in the last 3 wins they've had.
You know, talk about teams that are always snubbed by the committee. Washington is one of those teams, and Washington has UCLA today. Should not be much of a problem for them to win down there in Southern California, but Washington just can't get the eyes of those committee, and I don't think it's going to change with a win or a loss with this game.
How is UCLA 0-4? That's the thing that's right now the big puzzle for me, Tom. With Chip Kelly coming in, yes, it's going to be a tough situation, but this is a much better Bruins team than an 0-4 record would indicate to me. And I got to say, I think it's going to become 0-5 after Washington has their say in Pasadena this afternoon.
You know, we got Vanderbilt at number 2, Georgia. I mean, Georgia's a good team. And by a lot of counts, maybe if it wasn't for Alabama, they would be a number 1 team. But we also saw Vanderbilt play Notre Dame very, very hard. One would think, logically, that Vanderbilt does not have enough in their arsenal to beat Georgia. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Vanderbilt's taken steps backwards since that Notre Dame near victory. I got to say, I'm surprised that they've struggled the last couple games. They had trouble beating an FCS team in Tennessee State. They were soundly beaten last week, and I think the soundly beaten tag's going to go over here when they make the trip to Athens this afternoon to take on Georgia. This is a Vanderbilt team that I thought we had much more from, say, to the level of Kentucky, and boy, it has not happened since the loss to Notre Dame, where they had a golden opportunity to get that victory, and who knows where they might be if they had gotten it.
Absolutely. Well, we got another matchup in the Big Ten that I think is an intriguing matchup. You got a good Wisconsin Badger team against a up-and-coming and an up-and-rising Nebraska Cornhusker team. A win against the Badgers is not going to do much to move the needle for Nebraska, but will be a good moral win and a good feel-good win for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think, honestly, if you're to look at a team that might get knocked off today from the top 25, it could be sitting right there in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Actually, that game is in Camp Randall Stadium, and considering how poorly Nebraska played against Purdue, Wisconsin, I think this should be an easy victory for them, even though this is a team that did lose to BYU, and of course BYU got thumped last night by Utah State, I believe 45-20. This is not the team that's going to be knocked off here. Nebraska's got a big mess right now. You got to feel bad for Scott Foss's first year trying to turn this program around, and unfortunately, I think they're going to be just like UCLA at 0-5 after this week.
Well, certainly Stanford plays Utah. You would think they will bounce back from the stomach gut punch that Notre Dame gave them last week. The Utes and Stanford, what are your thoughts?
If Stanford has better offensive line play, they should have no problem beating Utah, but I think it all comes down to the way the offensive line plays in this game. If Utah can get through to KJ Costello and unknown about what Love can or cannot be able to do tonight, but ultimately I think Stanford does win the game, but Utah could give them a run for maybe 3 quarters.
Got a couple late-night games if you want to stay up late and watch these games. Colorado State and San Jose State, Fresno State and Nevada. What are your thoughts on those 2 really late games?
Colorado State, I think, has been a disappointment to me. I thought they would be a much better contender at this point. I think the opening week loss to Colorado, I think, really killed their chances. And Nevada's looked okay, but Fresno State, I don't think those are teams you look at the Mountain West that I think are going to pose much of trouble to, say, a Boise State down the road. So it's a good, decent win maybe for a decent bowl and among the ones they have a chance to get to, but I don't believe it's a contender for possibly knocking off a Boise State later this year.
And if you want to make it an all-nighter, you got Wyoming and Hawaii starting at midnight out in Hawaii. You know, we talked about Hawaii on Breaking Rank, and we thought and feel like maybe that Hawaii has a pretty good team this year, but, man, it's hard for them to get any eyes on them just because of where they're located.
Decent team. I mean, they got a good start. Let me bring them up here for a second. So my computer's going to cooperate with me. But, yeah, you're right. You look at a team that got off to such a fast start with all the early games that other teams didn't have to deal with. And, again, 13 regular season games for Hawaii, one factor. The loss to Army, though, obviously, Army's looking a lot better than advertised now after almost knocking off Oklahoma. You got a decent record there going in, 5-1 tonight. I think it'll be 6-1 after they get the job done against Wyoming tonight. But there's still some tough games. Obviously, the trip to Provo, Utah, take on BYU next week's going to be a tester. And San Diego State could also be a test. But you look through those games, there's a chance for them to get a decent record. Probably not enough to get them to the Mountain West Championship game, but certainly in a position for a good bowl, maybe even outside of the bowl that they host, the Hawaii Bowl.
Been talking with Matthew-Embury. I'm going to have you say the radio station again. You know what I'm going to do, Matt? I'm going to put a sticky note right here on my board that says Matthew's radio station, because I typically we talk we talk racing, I refer to your racing outlet, which is easy for me to remember. So, again, give us where people can find your work and masterpieces, sir.
Again, Facebook, Matt Embury, Twitter, Matt Embury, and, of course,